Every night, Daisy, the German shepherd, began digging at the same spot in the backyard. I couldn't understand it. No matter how many times I stopped her, she'd return the next night and start again. I tried everything, from scolding her to even putting up barriers, but she persisted. It was as if something was calling her there, as if she knew something I didn't. I had no idea that this relentless digging was going to lead me to something that would change my life forever. My name is Michael Anderson, and this is a story I never expected to live. I had always known Daisy as a loyal companion, a dog that would sit by my side after a long day's work, always patient, always there. But this was different. For weeks, every night, after I had come inside, the rustling sound of paws scraping against the dirt outside would pull me out of bed. I'd see her, digging with determination, her amber eyes fixed on the spot like she was searching for something. At first, I thought she was just being playful, but when the days turned into weeks, I knew something deeper was going on. Her digging wasn't just for the sake of digging. She was after something, and I needed to figure out what it was. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the moon took its place in the sky, I decided I couldn't stand it any longer. I grabbed a shovel, preparing to dig alongside her, to see what she was really after. Daisy didn't stop. Her paws moved quickly, the dirt flying everywhere as if she had no intention of quitting. I knelt down beside her and started digging, feeling the cold night air nip at my skin. The ground was soft, wet from the earlier rain, but my hands kept moving as I joined her. My heart raced, not because I thought I would find anything, but because I had never seen her so determined. Then, just as I was about to give up, my shovel hit something hard. It wasn't a rock, and it wasn't a tree root. It was something else. I cleared the dirt around it, my hands trembling as I uncovered an old wooden box. It had been buried deep beneath the earth, untouched for who knows how long. The box was small, weathered, and covered in a layer of dirt and grime. I paused for a moment, unsure if I should open it. But Daisy didn't hesitate. She let out a soft whine and nudged the box with her nose, as if urging me to open it. Slowly, I removed the lid. Inside, nestled in the velvet lining, was a locket. It was old, tarnished with age, but when I picked it up, a flood of memories rushed back. This was my mother's locket. She had worn it every day until the day she passed away. I had thought it lost, forgotten, but here it was, right in front of me, as if Daisy had somehow known where it had been all along. I sat back, holding the locket in my hands, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Daisy sat next to me, her eyes fixed on me, as if she understood the weight of the moment. She had brought back a piece of my past, a piece of my heart I thought I had lost forever. I didn't know how she found it, or why she kept digging, but in that moment, I realized that Daisy had done something incredible. She had saved me from the pain of losing something so precious. She had given me a second chance to hold on to something I thought I would never see again. Daisy didn't just dig at that spot because of instinct. She did it because she knew. She knew that sometimes, the greatest miracles come when you least expect them. After finding the locket, I sat there in the damp earth, staring at it in disbelief. Daisy sat quietly beside me, her amber eyes locked on the locket in my hand, as if she knew exactly what I was feeling. The world around us felt like it had slowed down. The wind had stopped blowing, the night seemed quieter, and for the first time in what felt like years, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. I had been lost in my grief, living in a haze of memories and regrets. But now, I had something I thought I had lost forever, a piece of my mother that Daisy had brought back to me. As I sat there holding the locket, I couldn't help but think about the years that had passed since I lost her. It had been hard to move on after her death. The house felt empty, her absence a constant weight in my heart. But in that moment, with Daisy by my side, I realized that I had been holding on to my grief, unwilling to let go of the past. Daisy, with her quiet loyalty and determination, had somehow found a way to bring me back to life. I didn't know how she had known to dig at that exact spot every night, but I knew one thing for sure. She had given me the chance to heal. The next morning, I woke up early, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in me. I walked into the backyard, Daisy by my side, and stood where I had dug the night before. The earth was still soft, the scent of fresh dirt lingering in the air. I could see the spot where Daisy had been digging, and it no longer seemed like a random place. It felt sacred, like it was meant to be. I kneeled down and placed the locket back into the earth, letting it rest in the very spot where Daisy had found it. I whispered a quiet thanks to her, feeling a deep gratitude for the dog that had changed everything. Daisy looked up at me, her eyes soft and knowing, as if she understood what I was doing. I stood up, wiping my hands on my pants, and smiled at her. "You've done something amazing, Daisy," I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how you knew, but you've brought me back to life." Daisy wagged her tail, her ears perked up, and she trotted over to me, nudging my hand with her nose. It was as if she was saying, "It's what I do." I laughed, my heart lighter than it had been in years. I had spent so long in the shadows of my own pain, but Daisy had shown me that even in the darkest of times, there was always a way out. She had found the light for me when I couldn't find it myself. From that day forward, I began to feel a shift in my heart. I wasn't just existing anymore. I was living again. Daisy had given me the greatest gift of all, the chance to heal, to move forward, and to embrace the future. I looked down at her, my faithful companion, and realized that no matter what happened, I would never be alone again. It had been a few weeks since the night I found the locket, and with each passing day, I felt like a part of me was slowly healing. Daisy, my loyal German shepherd, had become more than just a companion. She had become a symbol of hope. I had never expected to feel this way again. I had spent so many months, even years, struggling with the pain of losing my mother, that I didn't realize how much it had affected me. But Daisy had done something incredible. She had opened my heart again, in a way I never thought possible. I had begun to take walks with her every morning, something I hadn't done in a long time. The sun was rising earlier now, the warmth of the day creeping into the cool morning air. As Daisy trotted beside me, her tail wagging, I could feel the weight on my shoulders lifting. It was as if I had been carrying a heavy burden for years, and now, with every step I took, that burden was becoming lighter. One morning, we walked through the old woods behind my house. The trees were beginning to show signs of spring, their branches sprouting new leaves. The sound of birds singing in the distance filled the air, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. Daisy ran ahead, her paws kicking up the fresh earth, as if she was inviting me to join her in this newfound joy. I couldn't help but smile as I watched her, her joyful energy infectious. It was in that moment that I realized how much Daisy had changed my life. She had shown me that even in the darkest times, there was always a way forward. She had taught me to embrace the present, to find beauty in the little things, and to cherish every moment I had. As we continued our walk, I thought back to the night I had found the locket and the miracle that Daisy had brought me. I still didn't understand how she had known to dig at that exact spot, but it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she had given me something more than a physical object. She had given me a sense of closure, a way to reconnect with my past, and a chance to move forward. I couldn't have asked for a better companion on this journey of healing. We stopped at the edge of the woods, where a small stream ran through the trees. Daisy knelt down to take a drink, her eyes glancing up at me as if to make sure I was okay. I kneeled down beside her, running my fingers through her fur. "Thank you, Daisy," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "You've given me more than I could ever repay." Daisy tilted her head, as if she understood, then nudged me gently with her nose. I smiled and stood up, feeling a warmth in my chest that had been absent for so long. "Let's go home," I said softly, and together, we turned back toward the house. As we walked side by side, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would never be alone. Daisy had given me a gift that would last a lifetime, the gift of healing, of hope, and of love. It had been a few months since Daisy had brought me the locket, and the changes in my life were undeniable. I had started opening up to the world again, something I hadn't done in a long time. It felt like a new chapter, and with Daisy by my side, I was no longer haunted by the weight of my past. One morning, I decided to take Daisy to the local park. It had been years since I had gone there, and I wasn't sure why I felt the need to visit, but it seemed like the right thing to do. The air was fresh, and the sun was already high in the sky, casting a warm glow over everything. Daisy bounded ahead, her tail wagging as she ran in circles, eager to explore. I stood there for a moment, watching her, taking in the simple joy she radiated. I realized just how much she had helped me heal. Her presence was a constant reminder that I wasn't alone. She had been with me through the darkest times, and now, as the sun rose higher in the sky, I could feel the weight of those dark days slowly lifting. As we walked around the park, I noticed the small things that I had. Missed in the past, flowers blooming along the path, the soft rustling of leaves in the trees, the sound of children laughing in the distance. It was as if the world had come alive again, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was truly living. Daisy trotted beside me, pausing occasionally to sniff the air or chase after a fallen leaf. She seemed so carefree, and I couldn't help but smile at her innocence. I found a bench by the pond and sat down, Daisy lying next to me, her head resting on my foot. I leaned back, closing my eyes for a moment, just listening to the sounds around me. It felt good to breathe deeply again, to let go of the tension I had carried for so long. I thought about how much I had changed in the past few months. I had learned to let go of my grief, to stop holding on to the past. Daisy had been my guide through it all, teaching me that it was okay to heal, that it was okay to move forward. I thought about my mother and the memories I had once kept buried. With Daisy's help, I had found a way to remember her without feeling the weight of loss. I had learned to cherish the memories, to hold them close, but to also make room for new ones. Daisy's gentle presence had given me the strength to face the future with hope instead of fear. As the day drew to a close, we headed back to the car, Daisy walking happily by my side. I felt lighter, more at peace than I had in years. I knew that there would be challenges ahead, but with Daisy by my side, I wasn't afraid. She had shown me that even in the darkest moments, there was always a way forward, and that love and loyalty could heal even the deepest wounds. The days began to blend together in a comforting rhythm. I woke up early, made my coffee, and took Daisy for a walk. It had become our routine, one that I had grown to cherish. The quiet mornings, the peaceful walks, the simple presence of my loyal German shepherd by my side, it all felt right. Daisy had become my anchor, the steady force in my life. I never imagined that a dog could bring so much peace into my world, but here we were. One Saturday morning, I decided to take Daisy to the lake. It had been a while since I had visited, and I thought it would be a nice change of scenery for both of us. The air was crisp, and the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a golden glow on the water. Daisy darted ahead, her paws splashing through the shallow water, as if she had never felt more alive. I watched her with a smile, enjoying the sight of her so free, so full of life. As I sat on a nearby rock, I reflected on everything that had happened since Daisy had come into my life. I had started off feeling broken, unsure of how to move forward. The pain of losing my mother had weighed me down for so long. But Daisy had helped me find my way out of that darkness. She had led me to a place where I could finally begin to heal. I watched as she bounded across the shore, chasing after a stick that I had thrown into the water. I could see the joy in her eyes, the pure happiness of a dog doing what she loved most. It was a reminder of how far I had come. I was no longer trapped in my grief. I had learned to move forward, to embrace the present, and to find joy in the little things. Daisy had given me that. As the sun began to set, I stood up and walked over to Daisy, who had stopped to rest by the water's edge. She looked up at me, her eyes soft and trusting. I knelt down beside her, gently stroking her fur. "Thank you," I whispered, the words feeling like a prayer. "You've changed my life in ways I never imagined." Daisy leaned into me, resting her head against my leg, as if to say, "I'm here, always." I realized in that moment that Daisy wasn't just a dog. She was my guardian, my constant companion, and my reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always light. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with Daisy by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. We walked back to the car together, the quiet evening air settling around us. I felt at peace, content in a way I had never experienced before. Daisy had given me the greatest gift of all, the chance to live again. As the months passed, life began to feel more stable, more certain. Daisy and I had found our rhythm, our routine, and it brought a peace I hadn't known in years. The mornings were spent walking through the park, the evenings in quiet reflection at home. The world around me seemed brighter, the colors more vivid, as though I had been living in grayscale and suddenly found myself surrounded by full color again. I often thought back to that night by the backyard, the night Daisy had unearthed the locket. It felt like a turning point, a moment when everything changed. Daisy had not only found a piece of my past, but she had also helped me reconnect with who I was before the grief took over. One day, as I was sitting on the back porch with a cup of coffee, I watched Daisy chase a squirrel up the tree in the yard. Her energy was endless, her enthusiasm contagious. I couldn't help but laugh, a deep, genuine laugh that felt good in my chest. It was a sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. I thought about the pain I had carried for so long, the loss of my mother, the years of solitude and struggle, and I realized how much I had changed. Daisy had been my constant, my anchor, and in doing so, she had helped me find my way back to myself. I stood up from my chair, stretching my stiff muscles, and called out to Daisy. She stopped mid-chase and trotted over to me, her tail wagging, her eyes filled with excitement. "Come on, girl," I said. "Let's go for a ride." We jumped into the car, and I drove us to the lake, a place I hadn't visited in months. The familiar sight of the water, the trees lining the shore, and the cool breeze felt like a homecoming. We spent the day by the water, Daisy happily swimming and retrieving sticks, while I sat back, taking in the beauty of the world around me. It was in these quiet moments that I felt truly alive again. Daisy had given me the space to heal, the time to reflect, and the opportunity to embrace life once more. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the lake, I felt a sense of gratitude wash over me. I was thankful for Daisy, for the journey we had been on together, and for the new chapter we were about to begin. There was still so much to explore, so much to experience, and with Daisy by my side, I knew that I was ready for whatever came next. I reached down and patted her head, my heart full. "Thank you," I whispered to her, knowing that words could never truly express how much she had meant to me. She looked up at me, her eyes full of love and understanding, and I knew that no matter what, we would face the future together, side by side. It had been a year since that fateful night in the backyard, the night Daisy had unearthed the locket, and so much had changed in my life. The grief that once weighed me down like a heavy fog had slowly lifted, replaced by a newfound sense of hope and gratitude. Daisy had not only helped me rediscover my past, but had also shown me how to embrace the present and look forward to the future. We were no longer just two souls wandering through life. We were a team, bound by an unspoken understanding. One afternoon, as I was sitting on the porch, I thought about how far I had come. The house that once felt empty now felt like a home. Daisy lay at my feet, her head resting on my foot as she always did when we were together. The peace I felt was a peace I had never imagined possible. I had spent so many years trying to fill the emptiness inside me with distractions, but it was Daisy who had given me the gift of healing. I no longer sought to escape my memories. I had learned to live with them, to honor them, and to keep moving forward. Daisy had taught me that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant accepting, embracing, and finding peace. I stood up from my chair, stretching my legs, and taking a deep breath. I decided it was time for another walk with Daisy, our daily ritual that had become as much a part of my routine as anything else. We set off down the road, Daisy walking beside me, her tail wagging happily as she trotted along. The world seemed to have slowed down, the hustle and bustle of everyday life fading into the background as I focused on the simple joy of being in the moment. As we reached the edge of the park, I stopped for a moment, taking in the beauty of the landscape before me. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow across the sky. Daisy sat beside me, her eyes fixed on the horizon, as if she too was appreciating the moment. "You've changed my life, Daisy," I said softly, the words coming out before I even realized it. She looked up at me, her eyes soft and full of understanding, as if she knew exactly what I meant. It was in that moment that I realized how much I had come to rely on her, not just for companionship, but for guidance, for strength, and for hope. Daisy had been my constant, my anchor in a world that had once seemed uncertain. Together, we had faced the darkness, and together, we had found the light. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, I felt a deep sense of peace settle in my chest. The future was still unknown, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of it. With Daisy by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. We walked back home as the stars began to appear in the night sky, and for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. I wasn't alone anymore. Daisy had shown me that no matter how lost you may feel, there is always a way forward, always a chance to heal, and always a reason to hope. The years passed, and Daisy and I grew older, but our bond only grew stronger. Life had become a series of quiet moments, peaceful mornings, long walks in the park, and evenings spent together, sharing a simple existence that was full of meaning. I no longer felt the need to search for something to fill the emptiness inside me. Daisy had filled that void in ways I couldn't have imagined. One crisp autumn morning, I decided to take Daisy on a longer walk than usual. The trees were beginning to turn, their leaves painted in shades of red and gold. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of the coming winter. We set off along the familiar path, but today felt different. There was a sense of finality, as if we had reached the end of one chapter and were about to begin another. Daisy walked beside me, her steps slow and deliberate, as if she, too, understood that this was a significant moment. We reached the edge of the lake, a place that had become our favorite spot over the years. The water was calm, the surface reflecting the vibrant colors of the trees that lined the shore. I sat down on a bench by the water, Daisy sitting at my feet, her head resting on my leg. We watched the sun rise, casting a soft golden glow over the lake, and I realized just how much this dog had changed my life. She had been there for every difficult moment, every loss, and every victory. She had never asked for anything in return, except for my companionship, and in doing so, she had shown me the true meaning of loyalty. As I sat there, lost in thought, I knew that the time was coming when I would have to say goodbye to her. Daisy was getting older, her once boundless energy now replaced with the gentle movements of a dog who had lived a full life. But even as the years weighed on her, she remained by my side, her presence a constant source of comfort. I reached down and gently patted her head, the familiar warmth of her fur grounding me. "You've given me everything, Daisy," I whispered, "and I will never be able to thank you enough for it." Daisy lifted her head and looked up at me, her amber eyes full of understanding. She gave a soft wag of her tail, as if to say that she knew. She had always known. We sat there together, the peaceful sounds of the lake surrounding us, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly at peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew that whatever came next, I would always carry Daisy's love and loyalty with me. She had taught me how to heal, how to live again, and for that, I would be forever grateful. It was a quiet evening when I noticed that Daisy wasn't quite herself. She had always been full of energy, bounding around the house and chasing after the smallest things, but now she lay on her bed, her eyes half closed, her breathing slow and labored. My heart sank. I knew she wasn't as young as she used to be, but seeing her like this brought a wave of fear over me that I couldn't shake. I knelt beside her, gently stroking her fur, and she looked up at me with those amber eyes, still full of trust, still full of love. "It's okay, girl," I whispered, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. We had been through so much together. She had been there through the darkest parts of my life, my constant companion, and now, I couldn't imagine facing the world without her by my side. I spent the evening with her, sitting quietly, watching the fading light outside the window as she rested beside me. The weight of time hung heavily in the air. The years had flown by faster than I had realized. I thought back to the early days, when we first met. She had been just a pup, wild and carefree, full of energy and curiosity. She had brought joy into my life in ways I couldn't have expected. But now, as I sat there beside her, I realized just how much she had changed me, how much she had given me. She had taught me what it meant to love without condition, to be loyal, and to heal. I reached down and scratched behind her ears, the place she loved the most, and she gave a small sigh, leaning into my touch. Her eyes fluttered closed for a moment, and I found myself holding my breath, not wanting to think about what was coming. As the evening wore on, I decided to take her to the vet the next day. I knew it wasn't just a simple tiredness. There was something more to it. The worry in my chest grew with every passing minute. I promised myself I would do whatever it took to make her comfortable, to help her through whatever she was going through. That night, I stayed by her side, talking to her softly, telling her how much she meant to me, how much she had changed my life. I knew she could hear me, even if she couldn't respond the way she once had. We had been through so much together, and I was determined to be there for her now, just as she had always been there for me. The next morning, we made our way to the vet's office. Daisy was weak, but she still had that spark in her eyes, that sense of determination that had always defined her. I hoped, and I prayed, that she would pull through, that she would be okay. As we sat in the waiting room, I held her close, my fingers gently brushing through her fur, and I thought about everything she had given me. No matter what happened, I would be forever grateful to her. Daisy had given me more than I could ever repay. She had given me the gift of healing, of hope, and of unconditional love. The vet visit turned out to be more emotional than I had anticipated. Daisy was weak, but still had that familiar spark in her eyes. The veterinarian, a kind woman named Dr. Williams, examined her carefully, taking notes, listening to her heartbeat, and checking her vitals. I watched the whole time, holding Daisy's paw gently, whispering reassuring words to her. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, the anxiety rising in my chest with each passing second. Dr. Williams finally looked up at me, her expression solemn but gentle. "Michael, Daisy is getting older," she said softly. "Her body is starting to show signs of aging, and it's clear she's been a fighter, but we need to consider what's best for her moving forward." My heart sank as I listened to her words. I knew Daisy was getting older, but hearing it from someone else made it all the more real. I looked down at my faithful companion, her head resting on my lap, her eyes looking up at me with trust and love. I couldn't imagine life without her. "What do you recommend?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Dr. Williams gave me a compassionate smile. "We can try some treatments to make her more comfortable, but we have to be prepared for the reality that her time with us may be limited. It's about giving her the best quality of life for as long as possible." I nodded, understanding what she was saying. It was the hardest decision I had ever faced. I knew Daisy wouldn't be around forever, but the thought of letting go was unbearable. After the visit, I drove us home in silence. Daisy rested her head on the seat next to me, her soft breathing the only sound in the car. When we arrived home, I let her out into the yard, watching her slowly make her way around, sniffing the air as if nothing had changed. I realized that no matter what the future held, Daisy had already given me everything I needed. Her love, her loyalty, her companionship, they had all been gifts, ones I would carry with me forever. That evening, we sat on the porch together, the sunset casting a warm glow over the yard. Daisy leaned her head against my leg, and I stroked her fur, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. "You've taught me so much, girl," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "You've shown me what it means to love, to heal, and to live fully, even when it's hard." As the stars began to twinkle above, I felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over me. Daisy had given me more than I could ever put into words. And no matter what happened, I knew that I would cherish every moment with her, for as long as I had her by my side. The days continued to pass slowly, and the weight of what was to come pressed heavily on my heart. Daisy's health had deteriorated further, and while she still had her moments of joy, there was a noticeable difference. I tried to remind myself that every moment with her now was a gift, but the truth was hard to ignore. She was no longer the lively dog who would chase after sticks and run for miles through the park. Now, she moved slower, her steps more measured, her energy fading with each passing day. It was painful to watch, but I knew this was part of the journey, the part where I had to be strong for her as she had always been for me. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, I looked out the window to see Daisy lying in the sun, her eyes half closed as she soaked in the warmth. I could tell she was tired, but there was still a spark of contentment in her expression. I went outside and sat next to her, gently, running my hand through her fur. She leaned into me, a soft sigh escaping her lips, and I knew she was still aware of my presence, still finding comfort in it. "I'm right here, girl," I whispered softly, my voice filled with emotion. "I'll always be here for you." As the days passed, I began to prepare myself for the inevitable. I knew that soon, I would have to make the hardest decision of all. I didn't want to think about it, but I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. Daisy had given me everything, her love, her loyalty, and her companionship. Now, it was my turn to return that love and ensure that she wasn't in any pain. I spent more time with her than ever before, taking her on short walks, letting her rest in the garden, and sitting beside her in the evenings, just being present. I held her paw in mine more often than I had before, savoring each moment, each touch. I tried to keep my emotions in check, but there were times when I couldn't help but cry. Daisy had been my rock for so long, and the thought of losing her felt like losing a part of myself. I knew that I would never be the same without her, that life would never quite feel complete again. But I also knew that I had to do what was best for her. When the time came, I would have to say goodbye, but I promised myself that I would make her final days as peaceful and filled with love as possible. On the last morning I spent with Daisy, I woke up early, as usual, and found her lying beside my bed. She looked up at me with those familiar amber eyes, and for a moment, I thought she was telling me that it was time. I knelt down beside her, gently running my fingers through her fur one last time. "You've been my best friend, Daisy," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Thank you for everything." Daisy gave a soft sigh, and in that moment, I knew that she was at peace. I made the decision to let her go, to give her the dignity and comfort she deserved in her final moments. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the most selfless. I knew that, just like she had been there for me, I had to be there for her until the very end. Daisy passed peacefully that day, and though my heart broke, I found comfort in knowing that she was no longer in pain. She had given me so much, and I had done my best to give her the same in return. The house felt quieter now. The absence of Daisy left a space that was hard to fill. I had grown so accustomed to the soft padding of her paws on the floor, the sound of her breathing as she rested beside me, and the way she would always greet me with that wagging tail when I walked through the door. But now, all of that was gone, and the silence was deafening. It was hard to believe she was really gone, that the dog who had been by my side through thick and thin, the one who had taught me so much about love, loyalty, and healing, was no longer there. I spent the first few days after her passing in a kind of daze. I couldn't bring myself to remove her bed from the living room or put away her toys. Everything in the house seemed to hold a memory of her, and I wasn't ready to let go of that just yet. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to find a new rhythm. It wasn't the same as before, but I knew that Daisy would want me to keep going. She had always been the one to encourage me to move forward, to embrace the future, and now it was my turn to do that for her. I started taking longer walks by myself, walking through the park where Daisy and I used to go. The park felt different without her, but as I walked, I began to notice the small things, the rustle of the leaves in the trees, the chirping of birds in the distance, the way the sunlight filtered through the branches. These were the things that Daisy had always noticed, and now, in a way, I felt her presence in them. Slowly, the pain of her loss began to fade, not because I was forgetting her, but because I was learning to carry her memory with me, to honor it in the way I lived my life. I found myself smiling again, remembering the good times we had shared. I still missed her every day, but I knew that the love we had was something that would never fade. One day, while walking through the park, I stopped at a bench near the pond, the spot where Daisy and I had spent so many quiet afternoons together. I sat down, and for the first time in a while, I allowed myself to just sit with my thoughts. I could almost hear her breathing beside me, feel her presence in the space. It was comforting, and I realized that, in a way, she was still with me. The love she had given me would always be a part of me, and I would carry it with me wherever I went. I knew that no matter what came next, I would be okay. Daisy had given me the strength to face life's challenges, and now it was time to take that strength and move forward. As I got up to leave, I felt a sense of peace that had been missing for a long time. Daisy had left an indelible mark on my heart, and I was ready to honor her memory by living the life she had always encouraged me to live, a life full of love, hope, and the courage to keep moving forward. It had been several months since Daisy's passing, and the house, though quiet, had started to feel like home again. The grief that had once seemed unbearable had softened into something more manageable, something I could live with. I still missed her every day, but I had come to accept that she was no longer physically with me. What she had left behind was something far more powerful, her memory, her love, and the lessons she had taught me. I had started volunteering at the local animal shelter, something I had been hesitant to do at first. I wasn't sure if I was ready to open my heart to another dog, but as time passed, I realized that helping other animals in need was a way to honor Daisy's memory. The shelter was filled with dogs of all shapes and sizes, each one with its own story. It reminded me so much of the first time I met Daisy. The uncertainty, the hope, the desire to find a place where they would be loved and cared for. One afternoon, while I was walking one of the dogs, a German Shepherd mix named Max, I was reminded of the bond one had shared with Daisy. Max was shy and hesitant, just like Daisy had been when I first brought her home. It took time for him to trust me, but eventually, he did. Watching him come out of his shell, seeing his confidence grow, reminded me of how much Daisy had taught me about patience, love, and trust. I knew that, just as I had helped Daisy find her way, I could help other dogs find their way too. As the weeks went by, I found myself growing attached to Max. He wasn't Daisy, but he was special in his own way. I began to see him as a new chapter in my life, a chapter where I could continue the journey Daisy had started with me. I would always carry her memory in my heart, but I knew that it was time to let my heart open to a new companion. Max had taught me that love doesn't have to end when one chapter closes. It can simply transform into something new. I adopted Max, and while he would never replace Daisy, he brought new joy and purpose into my life. With him by my side, I found that the lessons Daisy had instilled in me about loyalty, love, and healing continued to shape the way I lived. Every day, as Max and I took our walks, I felt Daisy's presence in the breeze, in the sun, and in the quiet moments we shared. Daisy had given me more than I could ever express, and now, with Max, I was learning to give back, to love fully and without reservation. And in doing so, I realized that the greatest gift Daisy had left me with was the ability to keep loving, to keep living, and to carry her spirit with me, always.